my channel. If you guys are new, welcome. My name is Dina. Welcome to the family. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the books that I read this past fall and winter. Now if you guys follow my channel, you may have seen that I did a reading list video way back in the fall for the list of books that I would be reading for the fall and winter. And I'm not gonna lie, I didn't get through every single one of them. I got a little sidetracked. So I hadn't had a library card for a very long time, like since I was a kid. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna get a library card. It's been a long time. So I did that and I got a little excited and I took out a bunch of books, and I also discovered their online database. They have a website where you can actually go get ebooks and audiobooks. So I actually rented a couple audiobooks as well. So the books that I'm going to be reviewing today are a few of the books that were on my reading list for fall and winter, but the rest are some books that I took out from the library or listened to audiobook versions of them. The other books, I promise, if you are curious about them, I will get to them. I'm going to continue to read and hopefully do a part 2 in the next few months. But yeah, without any further ado, here are the books that I read this past fall and winter. Alright, so the first book that I read is We Are Their Heaven, and it is by a medium named Alison Dubois. I actually did read one of her other books, and oh my god, I just totally stabbed my eye with the edge of the book. I read one of her other books and I really enjoyed it, so I read this one after. This is actually lent to me by my future mother-in-law. Really amazing book. I highly recommend if you're someone who's really interested in spirits and the afterlife and what happens to your loved ones once they've gotten and passed over. Like, this is just like such a fascinating book. Now, from what I remember, the other book was a little bit more general. Like, there was a lot of like personal stories, but the difference I found was this one is it really breaks down the stories of each client. So she tell like from her point of view, but you also get the client's point of view and like their life story and like the story about the person that passed and their experience with their reading with Alison. It is really fascinating. So the majority of the book is about her clients and their personal experiences, but she also does get into other topics because a lot of her clients and fans and stuff, obviously they have questions about the afterlife and a whole bunch of things that we don't know, but Alison has a little bit more insight into, I guess, because she's a medium. So honestly, such a fascinating book. Highly recommend this book. Now the next book I do not have a copy of because it was an audiobook, so I will put a picture somewhere here. But it's called Unthink by Eric Wall, and I think that's how you pronounce it, Eric Wall. And basically what it's about is how we lose our creativity when we grow up. Our left brain is dominated by school systems and the workforce, but we need our right brain to be more creative and innovative. He goes on to talk about how like play is important and we need more excitement and spontaneity. It's very interesting. It was a good like easy listen because it wasn't a read. I didn't read it. I listened to the audiobook. It was very inspirational if you're someone who feels bogged down by the society we live in. Like, there's so many times I feel like during school where I totally just neglected my creativity, and that's why now that I'm out of school, I'm just having so much fun finding my creativity again. I've been doing art, I've been making videos, like editing videos is just a creative expression in itself. It's really cool. So I'm having a lot more fun with my creative side now that I have a little bit more time. I think it's very important. I believe that everyone has a creative side. Honestly, there's no one out there that's just not creative. I think creativity is one of those aspects that make us human. I think everyone has a creative side, and it's just about really developing that and enhancing that. And the more creative you are and the more often you use that muscle, then the better you get at it and the more confident you become in your creative expression. Now this next book I read, again, I don't have it because I borrowed this one from the library. I actually borrowed the physical copy, so I'll put a picture up, but it's called The World's Most Haunted House, The True Story of the Bridgeport Poltergeist on Lindley Street, and it's by William J. Hall. And basically this book was a full walkthrough of this haunting, and it was so fascinating because you got the point of view of the main author, but you also got the points of view of like a bunch of people that were witness to this whole paranormal situation. You got interviews from the family that experienced it. You got interviews from like police officers, investigators, neighbors, friends, like every single person that knew what was going on and was a big part of this whole investigation was, you know, included in the book. So it's very fascinating because you get all these witnesses that say like there's no way this family could have staged it. The things that happened, like the things just flying off the wall, the refrigerator just like falling down constantly, like the table being flipped over on its own, like there's so many people that investigated the things that happened there and there is no logical explanation. However, at the end of the book, they do go in depth about other possible like explanations for the whole occurrence. Other than like the paranormal, like obvious paranormal route, they actually look into like telepathy, or not telepathy, what is it called when you move objects with your mind? Because they like looked into that possibility, like maybe the kid was doing it. There's like, oh my god, there's so much involved in the story. If you're someone who likes paranormal stories like I do, honestly, just like definitely read this book because it was fascinating. I highly recommend that book. So the next book that I read or listened to, this one was an audiobook, it's called Unlearn by Humble the Poet. So I like this book. I wouldn't say it was anything amazing or different from what I've already read. I really like Humble the Poet. I like everything he stands for. I follow him on Instagram and YouTube and stuff. And I think it's a really good, simple, straightforward, motivational book about how to go about in life and rules to live by and things to not stress about, and like it's very interesting to read. But I have to say there wasn't a lot that I got from the book that I didn't already get from a different book that I read. So I would say if you're someone who is like new to self-help books or motivational books, then Unlearn is a great place to start because it is a great beginner self-help book. It gives you a lot of good information in there and in a very easy to read, relatable manner. Like the voice in the book is very much relatable and down to earth and everything, so I like that. Now the next book I read is again from the library, so I will insert a picture of the book up here. It's called The Science of Premonitions by Larry Dozy, MD. So it's a doctor, first of all, that wrote this book, which is fascinating in itself, like a doctor exploring premonition, something that, you know, some people might think is a little woohoo, but he actually like explores it from a scientific perspective. So this book contains various premonition stories, so you get a lot of personal stories and situations in history that have actually, like, people have actually had premonitions. It's honestly insane. I'm trying to like, I have like pictures of all of these pages in the book because I didn't want to forget it. I'm not gonna read from the book. I think I'll just like recount like one of the stories. But there was one of the obvious ones is that there's a lot of people that actually had premonitions before 9/11 occurred, and those people didn't go to work that day. That's one of the like big ones. Another one was of this church that actually there was an explosion in this church, and that day there was supposed to be a choir practice, and it just so happened that every single person in that choir did not show up for choir practice that day. They were either late or they had some other random spontaneous thing that happened in their life that stopped them from going to choir. And it was just fascinating because they interviewed every single person from the choir. No one knew what happened. No one knew that other people weren't going to choir. Like, everyone's situation was completely unrelated to the other person's. But there's that was like a more positive one. There's some premonitions that were a lot darker, or people like thinking something really bad's gonna happen and they wish they listened to their gut because it did. It's just like, it's insane. The science of premonitions are crazy. So there's actual evidence and studies that yield interesting information about premonitions, and one of them is called the presentiment experiment. So I'll just kind of quickly sum this up. I'm trying not to get too in depth. I don't want to bore you guys, but I think this stuff's so fascinating. The basic premise of the studies that they were doing is that they were measuring different parts of the body. That doesn't make any sense. Different things like your heartbeat, or like your pulse, or your sweat conductance. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Do I sound like a crazy person right now because I cannot find my words? Basically, what they had is this computer set up, and they had their subjects basically just watch the screen, and they'd either be shown a positive image or like some sort of disturbing image or something, to like things that would create two polar opposite reactions basically. Now, the interesting thing wasn't how people reacted to the image, but how they reacted a few seconds before they even saw the image. So they would show signs of like distress, and like their body would literally, like their heart would race, their like sweat conductance would go up, or whatever it's called, before they saw a like disturbing image, whereas before they saw a positive image, there were none of these signs at all. I'm explaining this so badly. The subject pre-acted their emotional state to the picture before the picture was actually presented to them. Like they knew what was coming. So like that's the basic premise of the study. And there were many studies that mimicked this study, and they also got statistically significant results. So that's insane. Honestly, I think that's like really good evidence to show that premonitions are real. Like humans have this ability. We are connected to this universe and world on a completely different level than a lot of people realize. So I think that book is honestly so interesting. I would definitely read it, guys. It was so interesting. Alright, so the next book that I read was on my reading list. I think there was only like 3 books that I actually read on my reading list, and then I got sidetracked. I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, it was The Power of Now, and I have mixed feelings about this book. Okay, so I read his other book called, let me grab it. This is the first book that I read by Eckhart Tolle. If you're interested about my thoughts on this, just have a look at my previous book review. I'll link it up here somewhere. Really enjoyed this one. This one, I liked the other one better. So the difference with this one's a little bit more focused on presence and being present and focusing on the now, as the title insinuates. English. I can't English today. So yeah, basically it focuses on the now. Eckhart Tolle talks about that in this book, but this book's a little bit more focused on that. So this entire, like the whole formatting of this book is kind of circles around Eckhart Tolle like talking, doing his whole thing, and then there's like this questioning voice. I don't know if it's a real interview or just some random questions, I don't really know, but it questions like what he says, and then he kind of like answers, or it kind of seems like a friendly debate in some ways. It's very deep and it's very challenging to read. I'm not gonna lie. This book did have a harder time, or I had a harder time keeping my attention to this book. This one is not easy to read by any means, but I had a lot more fun reading this, as you can tell by this number of sticky notes. It's an easy way to tell. I had a lot more fun reading this book. I got more into it. This one, it was kind of like I kind of had to force myself to read. I couldn't really get into it as much. There's obviously some things that I got out of it, as I did sticky notes on pages, so maybe I'll read you something that stuck out to me. All negativity is caused by an accumulation of psychological time and denial of the present. Unease, anxiety, tension, stress, worry, all forms of fear are caused by too much future, not enough present. Guilt, regret, resentment, grievances, sadness, bitterness, and all forms of non-forgiveness are all caused by too much past and not enough present. So like, that's like the basic premise of what the book's about, but like there's a lot more detail and stuff. If you are someone who likes Eckhart Tolle, you're a big, self-help book junkie and stuff, and you've read a lot of books like that already, then like, sure, give this a try. But if you're someone who's new to it, I probably wouldn't recommend it, or like at least maybe listen to like the audiobook instead, because I have to say this book is a little bit harder to follow. Alright, so the last book I want to talk to you today is actually the last book that I read, and it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving Enough. And I have to say, I think this is like one of my favorite self-help books I've ever read. I really like this. This is like you reading a book written by that friend who's like, no bullshit, will give it to you how it is, like no color coding or no fluff, just straight to the point. I have to put a disclaimer though, like if you're someone who's very sensitive to like cursing and you don't like the F word, then you probably don't want to pick this up, because he does curse a lot in the book. Like, you do see the F word over and over and over again. But I have to say, I enjoyed this book. First of all, has a lot of fantastic messages in there that I feel like I, on a consistent basis, need to hear. Just things to just not care so much about, because we get so caught up in life about things that really aren't that important, and we forget to focus in on the things that are important. So that really gives you, this book really gives you a lesson in that. I mean, there's so much to it. There's like, I could go on forever. Such a good book. I love the voice of this book. He's very, very funny, very comedic. So the way it's presented to you, it just like, it pulls you in, it draws you in. I could read this for hours and not get bored. Very different experience from this. Like, this was just like falling asleep, and then this one just like, it pulls you in. And it's one of those books that I would read again, because it is an easy read and it has a lot of lessons in there that I don't want to forget, you know? And that's why I do sticky note my books, because I can kind of go back and read the things that really stood out to me, and things that I don't want to forget. And sometimes I need a reminder in my daily life, because you read a book and you're like, oh my goodness, this is life-changing, and it makes you think a whole other way, and then you get caught up in your life again and you forget the lessons that you read. So that's why I sticky note things, because I can't bring myself to highlight pages, because I like to keep my books in good condition. But yes, if you are looking for a good self-help book, but something that's lighthearted and fun to read because you don't have a really good attention span, this is the book for you. Oh, I do want to mention one more honorable mention. I technically didn't read it in the fall or winter, but I just got this book. It arrived in the mail yesterday. I love this book. Okay, so this is Manifest by Annie Tarasova. She's an Australian artist, and I've followed her on Instagram and YouTube for quite a while. I love her stuff. I love her videos and stuff. I wish she posted more, but I know she's busy traveling and making art. But I love, first of all, I love supporting individual artists. I think that's amazing. I think we need to support more people like that instead of big, you know, organizations. But yeah, it's just such a beautiful book. I haven't finished reading it, obviously, because I just got it, but everything is just, it's all hand painted. Like, this is all her art. Everything is handwritten. It's all about, it's all about manifestation. And yeah, it's just like, it's just one of those aesthetically pleasing books that you want to have in your collection. And I'm gonna be so careful not to get bronzer on this beautiful white book. But yes, I'm in love with this. I already know I'm in love with it. I don't even have to play with it for that much longer. So I thought I'd throw that in there as well. Anyways, guys, those are all the books that I read this past fall and winter. I promise you I will get to those other books, and I will create another review in the next few months. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I would truly, truly appreciate it if you join the family. And thank you so much to everyone who already supports me. I honestly love you guys so much. You're so amazing. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye-bye.